Hi all. So my name is Kade Morton and welcome to Project Management, aka how to avoid a slow but undreamably costly and destructive train wreck. First up, I'd like to make the point that this talk is largely about problems that I have seen in IT and just some of the things that I've come across on how to fix them. I'll make the point this is not specific to one company. These are general problems that you'll find no matter where you work. And I also wanted to give this talk simply because we have a problem in business. So this is not strictly IT, this is across all business, where we have to come across as a fake simulacrum of what we really are. We can't be human, we can't talk about things that break, we can't say, like, this thing has broken, but we will fix it. And we can't say, look, we can't get this to work just yet, but we are going to get it to work by the deadline. If you admit this kind of stuff, like, it's considered to be a weakness, and people will act like you'll lose customers or business or whatever it happens to be. And this is a really short-sighted mentality, because if I have to go through a problem in my job and I find a solution for it, and then like, you have to go through it, and you have to go through it, and you have to go through it, and you have to go through it. If just one person had spoken and had that shared knowledge, it would have saved everyone so much time and effort. And if business is supposed to be about making money, as they say it is, if you think of the lost productivity in us all working in silos and not actually coming together, as a community we don't grow. So that's why I wanted to give this presentation. Second up, just to give you some background, so one of SAP's mottos is tell it like it is. So that's part of why I'm also giving the presentation. So I am going to tell it like it is, and hopefully it'll be for your benefit. Secondly, a quick plug. So I'm looking to start a Mozilla community here in Brisbane. If anyone is interested, my contact details will be at the end of the slide, and feel free to come up and talk to me after the presentation if you want. So finally, have you had some super serious talks so far? A bit bored by day 3? Project management is not normally considered to be a funny topic, but I will try, emphasis on the word try, to make this as entertaining as possible for you. So who am I and why are you listening to me? So my name is Kade, and the reason you're listening to me is because I submitted a really terrible bio. It's not yet, coming. So it's all about timing, guys. So I submitted a really terrible bio with no notes whatsoever, and the CompCon team decided it would be a good idea to give me a platform and get me up here to speak. So I'll let you be the judge. This was my bio. So, told you it's about timing. Kade Morton is a black sheep left by aliens to mature with his human parents to learn the ways of humanity. It's prophesied he'll one day lead the alien invasion of Earth and usher in an enslavement of the human race. To this end, Kade has held many jobs across many industries such as logistics, finance, and the public service, scrutinising the behaviours of humans as he goes. Currently, his cover story for planning the impending invasion of Earth is that he holds a position of project coordinator with SAP Ariba, coordinating the day-to-day work of a large multinational project run between the world's largest e-commerce networks. So I actually submitted that, and they actually let me get up here and talk. Seriously though, I work for SAP Ariba, one of the companies under SAP. I went looking for SAP memes to explain what SAP does, and I came across these. So I didn't make these, I actually found these, so someone else has made these. So, and I'd be interested to know if anyone that has any experience with SAP can relate to any of this. So what we do, we do business process software, and for the last 7 months, I've been working on a project that involves taking all of our users from one e-commerce network and moving them onto another network. We are some of the world's largest mining companies on the network, so these are our customers. And we have all the companies that then sell them things as well. So you can be selling a mining company something as exciting as, say, dynamite for the excavations. Or you can be selling them something as boring as pencils for the back office. And we're shifting all these companies from one network to the other. So that sounds simple, but the buyers have their own ERP systems, which are enterprise resource planning systems, designed to work with one network and not the other. So they have work to do on their side to reintegrate to the new network. Then you have the suppliers who may have a similar setup, so they have to reintegrate, or they may use our web form directly, but at very least, they have a new system to learn. Then you have active documents in the network that need to be copied from one to the other, like, say, a request for 50 sticks of dynamite. So you can interact with this document by confirming that you can deliver the dynamite, or you can reject it, saying, no, I don't have any dynamite in stock, or you can modify it, saying, like, I will have 46 dynamite, maybe 10 later on, or something like that. So you can play around with these documents. And the logic the system uses to interpret the code that the documents are formatted in is very particular, and they know where the document has come from, as there's an audit trail. They know where the document can go, so you can't just do silly things with it. And they know what sort of information is contained in the documents. So you can shift these documents just fine, but if you take a document made in one network and then try to do something with it in the other, it might just fail because it doesn't recognize where the document came from and thinks it's illegitimate, or it doesn't know where it can go, or it doesn't know what information is contained in it, or whatever. There's a whole lot of things that can go wrong with it. Then you have the fact that one of these networks was highly customizable, and one is one size fits all. So there is a lot of work that needs to go in to match the functionality. Then you have the fact that a mine generating millions of dollars simply just can't shut because they couldn't get their exciting dynamite for their excavations. So the other thing is, this has to be seamless. So these companies are currently transacting, and we can't ask them just to stop business so that we can get this done. We need to basically flick a switch overnight and have it working the very next day. There is a lot that goes into this, and it has to be done right the first time. So it is quite complex. We have multiple teams in multiple countries working on this. So I've lived it for the last 7 months, and you're listening to me because I can give you my take on project management. So this is not textbook theory. This is what I've learned in the last 7 months, and give you some tips on things that you might want to not come across and want to avoid. So the students among you may not go on to be project managers, but I can guarantee you that if you work in IT, you will have to work with a project manager at some point. So I'm hoping this presentation will be of some help. So the first thing to know, PM does not stand for project manager, as I have discovered. PM stands for puppet master. You cannot be across all the detail, all the low-level detail, but you do need to be across all the high-level detail. You need to know at any given time what every team is doing on your project. You need to be able to listen to someone, explain something, logically work through it with what you understand of the overall process and say, yes, I can see that will work, or no, that won't work because you've not accounted for this issue over here. When you spot that there are things that don't make sense, you need to challenge people, you need to convince them that there is an issue, and you need to get them to fix it. You set the agenda, you pull the strings with all the teams involved. Now, I was once told project management is like glorified box checking. That may be true on small, non-complex projects at small companies. However, in my experience, it's not the case at all. Project management is fire. Being a project manager is apparently very easy. It's like riding a bike. Except the bike is on fire, you're on fire, everything is on fire, and you're in hell. And this can be what it's like. So everything breaks, no one listens to instructions, developers build unusable solutions, and then they complain about rework. And that is a problem, developing teams and how they communicate with the other teams. How they communicate is a thing that deserves its own talk. But the point is, project management is fire. Tiny problems have the uncanny ability of becoming really, really big problems. So you can be looking at a bug, a very small bug like this, and the bug whispers to you, bro, this isn't even my final form. Like, small things just run away from you and just become these massive, like, just boulders that is terrible. So literally about an hour, maybe an hour and a half after actually doing this slide, I was working through some testing, and I came across what was a tiny little bug in the tiny little aspect of our system. And I realized that that aspect is actually fundamental to everything we do. It runs across the entire software platform, and we haven't got to those areas of testing yet. So I realized that this was actually something that could actually kill our deployment just outright. So I raised it as an issue with the wider team, and the overarching project manager came back to me and said, you've been vindicated. If we had not have tested and we had have just pushed ahead as we were told to and not tested anything because we were told, yes, this is all fine, it works, our deployment would have been derailed. So now at its core, project management is like riding a bike, if by riding a bike you mean working through a checklist. Big, long, technical checklists. So what should be in your checklist and how do you build it? You need to speak to every team involved and find out, at a high level, what goes into what they do. You need to map out all processes end-to-end right from the beginning. Now, this may seem a bit funny. This is all terribly complex and seemingly unrealistic. I was given a very, very similar document like this with accompanying pages to explain it all, and I was told that would be some light reading for a company flight. Light reading my foot. So when you're building a checklist, the things that you're looking for are dependencies. Dependencies are things contingent upon other things. So I can't start X until Y is done because X uses Y. So if you have a deadline and if you hit X and you've not done Y, your entire team has to stop because this thing is contingent, it needs to be done. You actually can't work. So if you have a deadline that's pending and your team actually has to stop, then that is actually just a train wreck. So it's a slow-moving train wreck because your project will have many moving parts to it and each takes a set time to complete. So you can be in trouble and not even actually know it. So things can seem fine. Everything's working all fine, like this team over here is doing stuff, this team over here is doing stuff, it's all good. But you haven't accounted for a dependency and you're 4 days away from reaching it. So in 4 days, a particular task will finish. You'll try to go into something else and you realize that you can't because something wasn't done. And that thing is going to take 5 days to finish. So even if you realize it right now, you're still 1 day out. You've still got 1 day that you can't work. And every day that you don't realize it, it gets worse and worse until you actually hit that full 5 days, and it's like hitting a brick wall, trust me. So, for the technically inclined among you, think of your checklist as a slow-running program that has to finish at a set period of time, and every time you hit a bug, it takes an inordinate amount of time to get it fixed. So you can imagine how blown out your deadlines can be if you hit multiple dependencies, if you do this again and again. And now imagine that your penalties for not meeting your deadline run into the millions of dollars. So that's how it can be undreamably costly. So I have actually seen $1 million dependency. That's not hyperbole, like I have actually seen that. I'm sure there are worse ones in the industry, but hand on heart, like we actually got an email saying if this work is not done, the company loses $1 million. So I heard from managers I never even knew existed that day. So your checklist is basically a map, and it takes you to, wherever you're starting, it takes you through to deployment or whatever it happens to be. So now you know why you need your map and you know why it's important. But the fire is in the journey when the train crashes. So here are some things to help you avoid your train crashing. As well as mapping out some processes, you'll be dictating some new ones when you find gaps. Yeah, I'll admit this slide is not terribly funny. You try finding a relatively PG meme relating to the word gap that doesn't involve references to thigh gap. It was really difficult. I lost hope in humanity and I just gave up in the end. So, gaps in processes. Check that all teams are down with processes. There is nothing like defining a new process where you have found that there is a gap and it needs to be filled. So you define your new process, you give it to the team to perform it, and the team has no idea what they're doing. Or they only do it partially. Or they do it shoddily. It's like hitting a dependency that never actually had to be there in the first place. Speak with development teams to validate what is being built and what is needed. We've all seen this graphic. It's not just funny, it is true, it happens and doesn't need to. On this point, communication is key. Remember how I said the issue with development, communicating with other teams, deserves its own talk? This is the mini talk right here. Poor communication is the biggest problem in IT. Developers who don't speak functional are told by functional teams what to build. So they build something that's other than what's required. The functional teams can't explain it to the developers properly because they lack the understanding to actually articulate it. The developers then build something that is not usable, and functional come back and say, look, you built something that can't be used, this is not going to market. The two teams go back and forward. So 2 examples of this that I've seen. A document the system produces needs to have a unique number on it. So the developers decide they'll generate this number by taking the system date and time and some other random factors and just generating a random number. So they've done what's required. It's unique, right? However, the number needs to incorporate numbers from other documents in the sequence so that when you have a whole heap of documents, you can tell what goes together. Now, if you can't tell what order your invoice goes with, you can't reconcile payment. And yes, while the developers have technically built something as to what they were told, it can't be used. So if your solution is unusable, customers will go elsewhere. If customers go elsewhere, you will have no business. If you have no business, this is you, with no money. Another example I've seen. A survey that the customer can send out to their customers to measure performance. So the survey would say, have you delivered on 100%, 90%, 40%, whatever it happens to be, of what you've agreed to deliver. So this survey was being used by a construction company, and they were sending it out to their contractors who were laying asphalt. Now, the contractors have absolutely no idea what percentage of the project has been delivered. All they know is how many kilometres of asphalt they've laid. So I actually overheard the customer yelling at the post-sales lady saying that the solution had been built by someone that did not understand his business. Now, to be fair, his language was a lot more colourful than that, and I will not repeat it here. And he was particularly scathing of the developers, but the point is, if the customer's unhappy, like, they will go elsewhere. And if customers go elsewhere, as I said before, this is what happens. You are still dead with no money. You have to be building things that can actually be used. So who is at fault here? Both parties, development and functional teams. Functional teams need to learn to talk technical, and technical teams need to learn to talk functional. Looking at communication more broadly, you'll be dealing with multiple different teams, multiple different personalities, multiple different teams, and if you're on a really big project, multiple different countries as well. So I've walked into meetings with particular teams, and the overarching project manager has said to me, now Kade, when you ask a question, make sure you articulate every single thing in your question, leave no ambiguity, and pin them down to an answer. I didn't really understand why she was being so pedantic, so I went in and I asked my question. I asked when would this particular aspect of the software be fixed. And I was told it would be done in a couple of days. Now, that didn't sound right, because I knew that things equally as complex had taken a lot longer. And remember how I said at the beginning that you need to assess what people tell you and work through everything that you know and go, okay, yeah, that works, or no, it doesn't. So I said to them, to be clear in what I'm asking you, when we're asking for this thing to be fixed, we are saying that this particular thing over here needs to be reworked, this thing over here needs to be data cleansed, and this thing over here needs to be remapped. Now you need to work through everything, work through any issues that testing throws up, and you were telling me that that will all be done in a couple of days, is that correct? They then said, oh, now that I think about what goes into it, it'll be a lot longer. I'm like, okay. So imagine if I had taken them at face value and worked with the fact that it'll be done in a couple of days. Like, I would have been stuffed. So, but at least now I'm getting a realistic answer to my question. The question can now turn to, okay, so now you know what's involved, and you now know what's going to go into it. You can have this done by what date specifically? You can have this done by close of business when exactly? So what plays into this communication? With this particular team, there is a language barrier, and so I need to check that everything I have said has been understood in the manner that I intended it. The onus is on me to check, because I don't know if they misunderstood me, and they don't know if they misunderstood me. There's also a cultural issue where Australians are seen to be very blunt and abrupt, and some cultures will just want to say yes to you because they think that's what you want to hear. Or they will just say yes because they just want to get you off the phone and they don't want to deal with your blunt personality in their face. I assume that you're a more technically inclined audience, so I will say this. Please never assume that anyone understood your very intelligent sounding but technical and jargon-laden answer just because you understood it. Just as functional teams need to be able to learn technical teams need to be able to talk in real-world terms. If you can do this, it is a skill that will take you miles in this industry. Test everything. I cannot emphasize this enough. You must test everything. On this current project, every tool, every single damn tool that I've been given, I've been told, it doesn't need to be tested, Kade. It works. Just use it. I use it and it doesn't work. Every single one. Operate under the assumption that nothing works until you see it working with your own eyes. If you test it and it fails, raise it as an issue. If they say no, it's fine, call bull, like things need to get fixed. It's the experience I had. I was given reports to run that would check the statuses of various things on this project. I ran the reports and the results did not look correct at all, so I went into the system, I manually checked the results against the report, and I could see that the report was missing things completely and flagging things incorrectly. So I then took screenshots, showed all the inconsistencies, and I sent it through to the global team and I said, your reports don't work, they need to be fixed. I don't even think they even looked at what I wrote. They just said, no, it's fine, Latin America's running it, it's fine, just keep going. I said, no, are you kidding? It's not working. It's not that I have a tool and Latin America has a tool and it's all separate. Like, we're using the one thing and I'm telling you this thing does not work. There's going to be a problem. They told me that I was being difficult with them. I told them that if you give me a report that works, I'll stop being difficult. They then asked me why I wasn't pushing ahead with particular tasks on the project that need the report data. I told them because you haven't given me a report that works yet, that's why. Some of the things I need to report on are legal requirements. I'm effectively saying that the company has done what it legally needs to based on the fact that the report tells me it's finished. I know the report's wrong. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to leave my company at legal liability. I'm also not going to push ahead with processes that need data that I'm feeding in data that's incorrect and incomplete. That's like building a house out of rotting wood that is going to bite us at some point. So I said, no, the reports need to be fixed. So I then sent them another email and asked them, okay, so when are you going to get it fixed? They didn't answer me. I sent them another email about a week later asking, when are you going to get fixed? Didn't answer me. I realized that they were ignoring me, not just on this issue, on everything I sent them. If it came from me, it didn't get answered. So I was like, okay, fair enough. A couple of weeks went by, and then Latin America come on a call, and Latin America go, oh, look, we've just started running these reports. And my ears pricked up, because I'm like, that's funny. I was told Latin America were running these reports weeks ago and they work. So let's see what they say. So they go, yeah, we've been running these reports and they just don't seem to be working. I don't know what's going on, they're just not working. And I basically pulled this face. And I went, oh, really? The reports don't work. Tell me more about these reports that don't work. And there was someone from the global team on that call as well. So I was given an apology. I was told that the global team had now found what the issue was and they'd get it fixed. So the moral of the story is stick to your guns, test things, and call Bill when things are not working and people are telling you, no, it's fine. If you are sure on your footing and you know that there is an issue, stand your ground because things need to get fixed. When I started in IT, I thought testing was just testing. But I've learned there are so many different types of testing. There's user acceptance testing we run with the buyer to make sure that the buyer is happy with the solution that we're delivering to them. There's functionality testing, which is testing as I would have conceptualized it way back when. Well, you bring in a new functionality, does it work? Does it play nice with everything else? Did it break anything? Then there's piloting, which is going live with your solution, but working closely with everyone involved to fix any bugs and address anything. And if the pilot is successful, then your solution is considered to be live. Then there's regression testing, testing things that have already been tested after a new change to make sure that they still work. Now, in a perfect world, everything would be regression tested, but unfortunately, as you are literally testing something that has already been tested, it is one of the first things to go when your resources are stretched. So bear that in mind. Try to avoid reinventing the wheel. Again, this isn't a terribly funny slide, this is actually a serious problem. I have sat in meetings 2 months down the track where the exact same thing is discussed because no one can remember what the first meeting outcome was. Now, this is not just sheer incompetence, this is actually a real problem of scalability in large companies. So I can have anywhere between 2, in a good day, to 6, 7, 8 meetings all in one day. Now, I can literally start my day in a meeting and never actually leave the meeting until well after close the business because the meetings just run back to back. I can't keep minutes for every single meeting I attend, and even if I can, how am I going to remember that thing that I vaguely recall we possibly maybe discussed roughly 2 months ago? It's just really difficult. You can't keep a ledger of every question and every answer because all the different teams have different ways of working. There are different document sharing methods, no one's across them all, and then you've got problems of different file versions. So at a big company, just the sheer number of people is also an issue. So I was at an event in Prague for the company, and I was listening to someone give a talk on my project, and they were telling me how the project was going, and I just looked at them and just thought to myself, I've never seen you before in my life. Like, I've never seen your name on any emails, I don't even know who you are. But apparently they've been on the project for longer than me. So, like, it's really difficult when you have hundreds of people and you have hundreds upon hundreds of decisions being made, it's really difficult to get everyone on the same page and track it all. So if you can, at the outset of your project, try to define how decisions are going to be codified and how they're going to be referenced. It sounds very simple. It's very glib to say, oh, just do it once and then it's done. And we have tried to do it with just one document sharing method and then just one file that has everything on it. But trust me, this is still an issue. Now, this may be less of an issue for smaller companies or smaller, less complex projects. And I don't actually have an answer for when scale becomes an issue with this. But I'm flagging it so that you can be aware of it and try to address it as best you can if you ever come across this issue. So, depending upon your resource levels, prepare to be flexible. You may have to wear many hats. Things generally fall to the project manager when they have nowhere else to go because the project manager has an overall understanding of the process. Do not be afraid to learn new things, and look at it as a practice in self-edification. You're a better person because you've learned new things. Also, you're a better employee because you have new skills, so look at it as career advancing as well. Wearing many hats can be stressful, and it can stretch you seemingly past what you feel are beyond your limits, but trust me, this is a good thing. Do not be like this cat, or your project will fail. Finally, take some enjoyment in your work. The more moving parts a machine has, the more likely things are to break. Unfortunately, that is just the fact of life in IT. Things will break. When you're working with multiple personalities, egos, teams with their own agendas, and you even have to actively fight against people from time to time, it can be stressful, so there's a lot of stuff that really can get to you. When you can, enjoy the little things. So, my guilty pleasure. When I'm given buyer presentations that are submitted, that are going out to the buyer, I secretly strip out all the Microsoft Office document images and I put in LibreOffice screenshots. You think that's Excel you're looking at? It's like Fight Club slipping the images into the film reel but open source software. Fighting proprietary software one slide at a time. This is how I see myself. This is how my friends tell me they see me. So yeah, enjoy the little things when you can. In conclusion, PM does not stand for project manager, it stands for puppet master. You have to set the agenda with all teams involved. Project management is fire. Things will break, you just need to get used to it. At its core, project management is just a checklist. So to build your checklist, you're confirming the business processes of every team involved and you're mapping your path to deployment or whatever it happens to be that your project is about. Communicate properly with all teams, test everything, cannot stress that enough. Document decisions and try to make sure they're referenced in one place. Be flexible. And finally, have fun when you can. So I'd like to thank you for laughing, or at least muttering nervously at the correct points in the presentation. Do we have any questions? No, I guess we're done. Thanks everyone for attending.